Quite a long time ago, I did a challenge on newer Super Mario Bros. Wii where I tried to collect every single coin in that game. And yeah, that challenge did not go so well. About a third of the levels were not possible, and we already got stumped in the very first world. But now I think it's only appropriate we do the same challenge for newer Super Mario Bros. DS. The rules will be pretty much exactly the same, so let me quickly repeat them if you haven't watched the first video, which I highly suggest doing, by the way. We have to grab every single coin in the game, but there are a couple of exceptions. Coins from enemies do not count since enemies can infinitely respawn. Coins that infinitely respawn by themselves also do not count. If there's a secret exit in a level, we only have to go for those coins when going for the secret exit, because otherwise there would be no way back. If a P-switch turns brick blocks into coins, then I don't have to get those, but blue coins spawned by P-switches do count. Then there's the flagpole, which in this game, instead of giving a 1-up when you touch the top, gives you 30 coins instead. I'm gonna say that these coins do not count, simply because they aren't physically in the level, and there's a lot of situations where the top of the flagpole is just impossible to get. And finally, since we have access to both Mario and Luigi, we are allowed to use either one of them for any level. For those unaware, by the way, Luigi has a higher jump, but also a little less traction, and the high jump can definitely help us out on some levels. So if Luigi is necessary, we'll use him instead. For most levels though, I'll just be using Mario unless we do need Luigi. So with that out of the way, let's get started with World 1. 1-1 was going really well. One thing I was glad to find out was that 10 coin blocks no longer spew out a burst of coins when you hit them enough times. That alone will make this challenge a lot easier. There were so many levels in the Wii game which were impossible because of those godforsaken blocks, but they're not a worry here, fortunately. Or so I thought, because only a few seconds into the level we come across a huge problem. There's two 10 coin blocks embedded into the wall, and the only way we can get them is by using a Koopa shell. However, the distance between the block and the wall is too big for us to even get close to all 10 coins from the block. We can only get 5 at most. So then my idea was to stop the Koopa shell right after it hits the block. But pulling this trick off is so goddamn precise that it might as well be considered impossible. So already it is not possible to beat newer Super Mario Bros. DS while collecting every coin. This might be the fastest that any challenge ever turned out to be not possible. That is extremely sad, but hey, why stop here? We still have the entire rest of the game to try out, so let's leave that loss behind us and move on with the challenge. 1-2 was going much better, fortunately. It was actually a very straightforward level. There was another 10 coin block, but luckily I could just ground pound this one, which by the way will mainly be ground pounding these blocks instead of repeatedly jumping to hit them because it's much more reliable. But anyway, 1-2 is possible. 1-3 had me worried a little bit since there were coins floating above the poison, but by using the donut blocks to our advantage we can easily get them, deeming this level possible. 1 tower had no issues at all. It was more than possible, including the secret exit. And the remaining levels of World 1 also caused no issues at all. 1-4 is an auto-scroller ride on a giant wiggler, but the wiggler is so long, making backtracking so easy that it hardly matters. 1-5 was a very fun athletic level. It had a pretty strict time limit, but it was still doable nonetheless. 1A was an extremely straightforward level and honestly pretty boring, and 1 castle was also fairly easy despite the weirdly short time limit. And that's World 1 done. So out of all the levels here, only 1 is not possible, which is pretty damn good. It's just a shame that the 1 impossible level happens to be the very first level, but oh well. So let's move on to World 2. World 2 started off really well, with 2-1 being possible with nothing noteworthy. 2-2 was also a very simple level. Just make sure to not destroy these brick blocks here because you need them to get the coins from this 10 coin block. 2-3 had another Koopa shell hitting a 10 coin block, but unlike in 1-1, the wall is close enough to the block for it to get all 10 coins from it, so luckily this level was possible. 2A is the first mini mushroom level, and you already know how much this is going to suck. It was actually going quite well until coming to this section with a bunch of skeeters in a row. There's a group of coins floating above the skeeters, and it might not seem like there's that many coins at first glance, but trust me, getting all these coins with the Mini Mario sounds a lot easier than it is. Because Mini Mario's hitbox is obviously very small, getting all these coins before the level scrolls past them is really difficult. I tried this for quite a long time, but man, it is so precise to pull off, and I just wasn't collecting them all. Until this happened. I got them all, but again, this definitely looks a lot easier than it was to do. The rest of the level fortunately wasn't really too difficult, although there are two more small things to point out. The first being that at the checkpoint there are 5 coins which are laid out pretty awkwardly to the point where if you jump, well, you just barely jump too high and can't go back to collect the coins that are left. But using a ground pound at the right time, you can thankfully collect all the coins. And the second one being this 10 coin block right above the water, which despite being really precise to fully max out, it is definitely possible to do. So yeah, that finally means that 2A is actually possible. Although, man, it was quite a challenge to say the least. Next is 2-4, which is the infamous minecart level. You probably expect this one to be a doozy, but well, honestly, this level really wasn't too bad. There were a couple of coins lined up in awkward places, like this one where you need to pull off a really tightly timed jump on this minecart to get all the coins, but other than a couple of hard jumps here and there, the level was surprisingly enough quite simple and actually possible. 2 Tower is a different story, as there's a split path early on in the level which all have coins and no way to get to all of them, so unfortunately this level is unbeatable. And 2-5 is another impossible level. Near the end there's this speed switch which spawns a bunch of blue coins very high up on the screen, and yeah, collecting all of these is just never gonna happen. Maybe if you're a task bot it's possible, but even then I highly doubt it actually is. 2-6 is next, and this level was definitely a doozy. After the checkpoint there's this vertical section where you constantly get pushed down by the water currents, but as you can see there's a lot of coins here and even on split paths, so you might be wondering how it's even possible to grab all of them. Well, it turns out that by spamming your heart out on the jump button you can actually swim up fast enough to outswim the current. Doing this was very tiring on my hands just because of how many split paths there are, but it does mean that it is possible to get all the coins here. But none of that effort matters anyways because there's a bunch of coins at the end of the level, and since we are forced to go up because of the current, there's no way to go down and get all of the coins. So yeah, all of that pain in my hand for absolutely nothing. Thanks, game. Luckily, 2 Airship gave us a nice break from those last few levels, as it was super easy and possible to do. So out of all 9 levels in World 2, only 3 of them are impossible. That is definitely not bad at all, but anyways, let's move on to World 3. And like with World 2, World 3 starts off with a very straightforward level, with 3-1 having again nothing to mention. 3-2 was pretty annoying because it's another mini mushroom level, and there's also a 10 coin block which you can't max out as mini Mario, but by having a power up in your item slot and being smart about the order you go through the level, you can get all the coins from the block and everywhere else as well, including this bonus room. So thankfully this was a pretty easy level. 3A was a really easy and frankly quite boring level, and the same goes for 3 Tower. 3-3 had a lot of honeycombs but not a lot of coins, so again the level was totally beatable. 3B was another pretty boring level, and even though it was an auto-scroller, getting all of the coins here was super easy. 3C was yet another level with nothing remarkable to discuss. 3 Ghost House is our very first Ghost House level, and I'm absolutely dreading these because of how cryptic they can be, but fortunately this one really has not a lot of coins at all, making it super easy to complete. And finally, for 3 Castle, there were also barely any coins to collect. So after annihilating this big fish, World 3 is done. So out of every level in World 3, all of them are possible, which is amazing. Damn, we absolutely blasted through World 3 with ease, which was quite a nice break from World 2. Although the levels were quite boring regardless of this challenge, so that once again confirms why I don't like this world. But anyway, before I get into all that again, let's move on to World 4. 4-1 had a lot of these spinning blocks that each had coins in them, but by being patient and ground pounding some of them, we could easily collect all the coins and the rest of the level was smooth sailing. And the same applies to 4-2 and 4-3. Both of these levels were super easy and have again nothing interesting to mention. 4 Tower though did not go well. Down the middle of the level there's a split path with both paths having coins, and yeah, there's really nothing we can do about this no matter how fast we move. So unfortunately this one is impossible. But after that we had a very long win streak of easy levels, including 4-4, 4 Ghost House, 4-5 and 4-6. All of these levels really caused no issues at all. 4A though was super annoying. This level contains a bunch of platforms which fall immediately upon touch, and there are a ton of coins below these platforms, which means we have to get all of them while these platforms fall insanely quickly while also not falling all the way to our death. So knowing this, I immediately switched to Luigi because of his much higher jump. This might make the level sound super easy, but no, of course it doesn't. The problem was this batch of coins at the very start. As you can see, there are 3 columns of coins, and because Luigi's hitbox is basically only one column wide, getting these coins might look straight up impossible. But then, wait, what happened there? Yeah, I actually did get all of the coins there. It turns out that Luigi's hitbox is actually slightly wider than one tile, which actually makes it possible to get all the coins. But getting this down is so damn precise because you have to be in the exact spot for the hitbox to touch all the coins. Nonetheless, it is actually possible to get all the coins here, and while the rest of the level does feature some tricky parts, like here with the stacks of coins and booze in a way, the level is 100% possible. And finally, for airship, or rather just ship, didn't really pose much of a challenge, even with this auto-scrolling section near the end. So that means that out of all the levels in World 4, only 1 out of 10 was not possible, which again is a great score. So let's move on to World 5. And of course, World 5 continues the trend with easy starting levels, as 5-1 was yet another super straightforward level to complete. 5-2 is a little bit more complicated though. It all went fine and dandy until coming to this vertical section. This section, of course, contains a bunch of coins and donut blocks, but it also has this pipe halfway through that leads to the secret exit. Now, this might not seem like an issue at all. For the normal exit, we can just get all the coins here and progress forward as usual, and for the secret exit, we can simply just get all the coins at the bottom and then go back up with some wall jumps and wait, what? We got blocked off? Yeah, for some insanely stupid reason, as soon as we go below this pipe, we get blocked off from going back up, which means we can't enter this pipe anymore. Why this even happens in the first place is beyond me, but it is so incredibly dumb. But yeah, there's not much we can really do about this, so unfortunately, this bizarre setup makes this level impossible. 5A was another auto-scroller, but it barely had any coins, so it was yet another super easy level to knock out. And the same goes for 5 Tower, which has nothing remarkable to point out. 5-3 is next, and this one was quite tricky. The first half of the level is nothing too bad, but the second half is another auto-scroller, and unlike 5A, this section is pretty tough. The main issue was this arch of coins above the snow spikes. These coins are super high up, and getting these with a normal jump is obviously not possible. So I tried bouncing on one of the spikes, and that was definitely getting me somewhere, but with this game's physics, it was still quite tough to get all the coins. I tried this for a pretty long time until I finally lined myself up just right with the spike to get the perfect jump and collect all the coins really nicely. Oh yeah. And then while writing the script for this video, I realized I could have just done this as Luigi, which would have saved me so much time. Yeah, what a surprise, this level is easier as Luigi. Wow, who would have guessed? Anyways, the rest of the section was not too bad, although I did have to ride this flying block to get these coins, as well as ground pound the block before going into the pipe to get the coin from it. Somehow I got that first try, but even then it wasn't really too difficult. So yeah, 5-3 is possible. And for the rest of World 5, I really had no struggles at all. This includes 5B, 5C, 5 Ghost House, 5-4, and finally 5 Castle. None of these levels really caused any issues at all, and also have nothing interesting to discuss. So out of all the levels in World 5, again, just 1 out of 10 is not possible. Damn, so far this challenge is going really well. There really have been very few levels to be impossible. However, let's move on to World 6 before I jinx myself. And it turns out I actually did completely jinx myself, because 6-1 is actually impossible. Yeah, that's quite sad. There's a split path down the middle of the level where you fall down, and because both of them have coins, we of course can't collect all of them. Man, I should have just kept my mouth shut. And 6-2 is actually impossible as well, and you wanna know why? Well, because of another split path. Yep, there's another sequence where we fall down, and there's yet another split path with coins on both of them. I tried moving fast enough to grab all the coins, but there's just no way to do it because of the low gravity physics. 6A luckily redeems my sadness, because this level was beatable and quite simple as well, and the same goes for 6 Tower. 6-3 was quite annoying because there's a bunch of meteors falling from the sky, but otherwise the level was totally doable. And 6-4 had a lot of coins high up in his bonus room, but as Luigi, getting these coins is of course super easy. Moving on to 6-5, by far one of the best levels in the game. However, being a phenomenal level doesn't cut it for this challenge, because like with both other impossible levels in this world so far, we have yet another split path with both having coins, so that's a bummer. Fortunately, the rest of World 6 was quite simple, with 6-6, 6-7, 6B, and 6 Airship all being completely possible. So that means that out of all 11 levels in World 6, levels, only 3 of them are not possible. That's a pretty good score, although all 3 impossible levels being because of a split path is pretty stupid to say the least. Nonetheless, let's move on to World 7. Starting with 7-1, it was a pretty tricky level because of the many bouncing platforms and such, but it was otherwise totally possible. 7 Ghost House doesn't fare well though. Wouldn't you know it, yet another split path being the culprit. Man, this game has really come to bite me in the ass with those stupid split paths. Anyways, 7-2 was fortunately possible, and the same can be said for 7-3 and 7 Tower. 7-4 was the Thundercloud stage, and this one was also not too bad. The level gets pretty chaotic near the end, but it's nothing I can't handle, so yeah, this one was also pretty simple. 7-5 is unfortunately impossible though. There's this bonus room with a bunch of blocks which you can destroy with a Buzzy Beetle shell, but these aren't the problem. The issue is this row of blocks underneath this pipe, because these all contain coins, and of course there's no way to get the coins from all of them. I have no idea why these even contain coins in the first place, but anyways, the level is sadly unbeatable. 7-6 was a super frustrating level because the physics of these swings are super annoying to handle, but with a bit of practice and also throwing some swear words at a computer screen for nearly 10 minutes, I was luckily able to get all the coins. 7-8 though is another impossible level. Just before the second half, there's 3 coins above this tornado which are way too spaced out for us to even stand a chance of grabbing them all. And we also can't grab on fast enough to get back down because we almost immediately get warped to the second half of the stage. Next up is 7-7, another mini mushroom level, and my god, when I say that this level was a pain, I fucking mean it. This is the level where you constantly bounce on bonsai bills, and man, the jankiness of all these hitboxes, as well as Mini Mario's physics and tiny hitbox, makes this level a fucking pain to get through. And not only that, but the coins were laid out in the most obnoxious way possible. A lot of big badges above bonsai bills, and this final downward section was so annoying to deal with because of the Mini Mushroom's physics and the inconsistent hitboxes. I spent nearly 2 hours on just this one level, which might not sound like much, but literally every single other level up to this point hasn't even taken me more than like 20 minutes. Yeah, that says enough. There's honestly no way to describe how torturous this level was, so I'm just gonna let this run speak for itself. Well, I hope you're impressed by that, because that was a huge pain to get down. Thank God that after all of that, the level is finally possible. My goodness. And thankfully, 7 Castle gave me a much needed break because the entire level was pretty straightforward. Thank the Lord for that. So, out of all the levels in World 7, only 2 out of 11 are not possible, which is great. I just know that 7-7 is gonna give me nightmares for a couple weeks, but anyway, let's move on to the one and only final world, World 8. And once again, World 8 started quite nicely, as 8-1 was totally possible with no hassle. 8-2 was a fairly slow and boring level, but was also 100% possible, so hey, at least there's that. And 8 Tower had this annoying gimmick where the screen darkens the higher up you get, but again, the level was painless. 8-3 had the good old wind, and while it was pretty tricky to deal with, getting all the coins here was nothing too bad. And 8-4 had yet another annoying gimmick, or rather 2 annoying gimmicks, being the Angry Sun and Mad Moon. They were super irritating to handle because of how unpredictable they are, and while they did make the level quite a challenge, it was still possible to get all the coins here. 8 tank is where the difficulty definitely started to show itself. However, all of the coins here are still grabbable, albeit with some pretty tricky sections. 8-5 is next, and remember the meteors? Well, they're back and more annoying than ever. This is a very luck-based level because there's a lot of blocks containing coins which the meteors can destroy, but like I said, with a bit of luck and being somewhat fast, you can get all the coins here relatively easily. 8-6 was yet another auto-scroller, but it was nothing too bad. We did need to make sure to blow up these bomb keys at the right time to open some paths that have coins, but otherwise it was pretty easy. The same goes for both 8-7 and 8-8, which were both surprisingly straightforward levels for this late in a challenge, but hey, I'm definitely not complaining. Next up is 8-8, the second minecart level, and you probably expect this one to be a heck of a challenge, right? Well, strangely enough, this level was actually easier than its World 2 counterpart. There were not a lot of coins to collect, and pretty much all the coins that are there are laid out as how you would jump anyways, so yeah, this one was actually quite easy. And now, finally, we get to the last challenge, being 8 Final Castle, and I really hate to be anticlimactic here, but this level wasn't really made any harder than it normally is. So after beating Bowser, we have finally beaten the game and completed the challenge. So out of all 80 levels, a grand total of 68 levels turn out to be possible. That's a pretty damn good score if you ask me. So yeah, that was it for this challenge and this video as well. I'm sorry if this challenge was maybe not as interesting as you would have liked, but hey, I can't really do much about that. I'm definitely proud of what I accomplished here, so I hope you at least enjoyed this video. But anyways, thank you for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye!